Hi, and welcome to Sustainably Smart Talks. And today I'm joined by Dr. Naomi Howard. And today we're going to talk about from nanoparticles to nationwide impact, making science tangible. Well, Naomi, thank you for joining me today in person.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm very excited to be here. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. We have a scientist, a researcher, and a science entrepreneur in the house.
Yeah.
How are you feeling today?
Yeah, very excited to be here. Really lovely to see all the things you're doing. Yeah, ready.
Yes, indeed. What do people not see on your LinkedIn?
What people not see on my LinkedIn? Well, I'm actually speaking with a few people this morning. I've got plans to update my LinkedIn. I've got some new pictures coming and things like that. So I think from maybe my social media footprint in general, people would not be seeing all the things we're up to and all the things we're doing. So I have my business name up on there. I have my qualifications up on there. It says that I've recently completed my PhD. It says that I have now a science communications company, and that's probably it. So yeah, I'm definitely behind, and it's something I want to actively work on, getting my social media just to represent all the interesting, diverse things we're up to day, because there's a lot going on.
Yes, indeed. You started in human nutrition.
I did.
Tell us a little bit about that, please.
Right. So we're going really way back. I did my undergraduate. I started that in 2010. Just a long, long time ago now, and that was at Greenwich University. Now, at the time, I had, I perhaps underperformed is the word. Yeah, I'd underperformed slightly in my A-levels. And I knew I wanted to stay close to home to go to university. I didn't want to go somewhere really, really far afield. So I looked at the closest university to me. I had a young child at the time, so that was a main factor in it. And I wanted to stay close to home. So there's one university with a science sort of nice science courses on the campus. And I felt like human nutrition was the most scientific of the courses that was, available to me at that distance. And he had some nice modules in like biochemistry and actually when I think back about it and sort of public relations as well had some nice elements in there. You're really working with people as a nutritionist. So yeah, that's when I really realized through the science modules, okay, science is what I want to do. That's my thing. But I really love food as well, always have, and everyone's got to eat. So I think there's no harm in knowing about nutrition as well.
Okay. Well, as well, you did your master's now, and as well, you're a doctor. That means you have a PhD. Can you break down your PhD work in a way a teenager could understand?
Right, yeah, I can. So if I mention my master's, that was also at Greenwich University, and I got awarded a scholarship for that. So amongst the nutritionists, I'd done very well in the chemistry-based modules. So I ended up being put forward for a scholarship for a chemistry-based master's, and that's what I did. And I quickly found, oh my gosh, for people who've been doing chemistry all the time, I'm really at the bottom of the pack. So it was a bit eye-opening. With my PhD research, if I had to sum it up, it would be, so it's based on nanoparticle self-assembly. And nanoparticles are really small. We're talking about 1,000th of a meter. So people kind of know it's small. People don't really have a practical sense of how small they are. And when we get down to that scale, the electrons in different molecules and atoms play a different role and have different rules over how things behave. So when things become so small, they move and interact in a different way. Okay. And we were looking at them and how they self-assemble into their own structures with structural hierarchies, features that are repeated from the nanoscale to the macro scale. So really tiny things that want to build themselves. That's how I would explain it, looking at how tiny things can build themselves.
Yes, yeah. Indeed. Well, do you think institutions do enough to translate science to impact?
Are they doing enough? Are institutions doing enough to translate science into impact? I think so. I think me and you, we attended the same university for a period, didn't we?
Yes, indeed.
We did. And if I look, and if I consider Loughborough University and my colleagues there and the research they were doing, there were some very, very impactful projects and some very impactful PhDs. It was here at Loughborough that I really got my first real taste of science communications, which is obviously now my business. And there's some fantastic people doing outreach and going into schools, going into colleges and other sort of community places and really promoting what research is, what academia is. So I think there's always more that can be done. And I'm trying to make that as widespread as possible. I'm very passionate about that. But I think universities are now understanding this and are really trying to bridge that disconnect between these academics who sit up in a lab and do research,
Yes, indeed.
and the real life implications, the real life value of this research and what the scientists do. So yeah.
Yeah, so you launched a science events company.
I did.
Yes, indeed. So what kind of events do you run? Paint me a picture.
So I say to people, the reason I sort of fell in love with science, the colour changes, the bangs, the pops, the fizzing, we get to do that every day. We go and do events and do educational, fun science hands-on experiments. We believe science should be learnt with our hands and not just sort of taught. We love getting people messy, getting them involved. So yeah, we have loads of fun. We've got a really cool session where people make paper circuits and we have LED cards that light up, little celebration cards. We've had, I'm trying to think how many children did it. I want to say like 50, 60 children building mini robots. I mean, that's similar to your area. I've spoken to you about that as well. I'm really interested to hear more from you about that another time. But robotics, which is a really, growing industry at the moment as well. So we do try and take things from what's happening in science in real life and try make them translatable, make these things not seem like foreign concepts, make them understandable and approachable and accessible for really everybody. So we do a lot of children, also do adult events as well, which are really loads of fun. So the company's motto is science for everyone, science for all, inspiring tomorrow's scientists today. And we try and make science accessible for everyone, old and young.
Yes, indeed. Well, let's just ask a more personal question. So, did you feel fully supported as a woman in science and a creative thinker?
Did I feel fully supported? I think certainly a journey doing my PhD. And I think it was very eye-opening. I became aware of a lot of things I was perhaps ignorant of beforehand. So when you open your eyes and when you sort of become aware of a new thing, they say ignorance is bliss. You can't then ignore those things. So I became aware of ways in which I was disadvantaged, and I became aware of ways in which I could have been supported better. And also in terms of my professional development, being able to identify those factors for myself and speak on them. Oh, I need this to succeed. I want to achieve this to succeed. I want this in place. But there were definitely big players who really got me through it and really inspired me, in so many different ways. So I feel like when you do a PhD, it's a personal journey. You're really pushing yourself to that limit. Often you do become an expert in your field, but it doesn't really matter what your area of expertise is. You're more saying, I can take my studying and my knowledge or my research to this area. So I think it's a personal journey. It was always a personal thing for me. I'm responsible for it, It's my responsibility to make it work. So I took that very much upon myself. I did. And I had some real supporters along the way. So yeah.
Okay. At any point, did you ever consider leaving a PhD?
No, not at all. I'm incredibly stubborn, incredibly hard-willed, and I think some little girls dream about walking down the aisle as a child. I dreamed about walking across that stage. I really did. So to make that a reality, it was never an option. It was more, how do I achieve this? There were certainly moments when I thought, my gosh, why am I doing this? There were certainly moments where I didn't enjoy it, for sure. I took a small break for an industrial placement during the middle of my PhD. And at that moment in time when I made that decision, I felt so stagnated. I couldn't move forward. I wasn't having good ideas. I couldn't sort of find my flow. And I knew I needed a change of scene, but I still did that in a way that allowed me to come back to the PhD. So not competing, it was never an option for me. When I set my mind to something, I really do. Someone very early on in my educational journey said to me, I don't think you're going to do very well in education. And it didn't affect me. I didn't feel upset about it at the time. I was like, that is your opinion. But I sort of said to myself, no, I am.
Listen.
I'm gonna do very well in education, and that's what I wanted to do. So yeah, that's what I did. Yeah.
So well, how can we build culture in science? How can we make science accessible for everyone so it belongs to everyone?
I think science does belong to everyone, and people need to understand that. I often say, when you go and when you make a decision on how you're going to prepare your food, or what medication you take from your doctor, how you take a medication from your doctor, how you interpret your blood test results. These life-based decisions are all rooted in science, and you have to have a good working relationship with science to live your life successfully and to make these decisions, these informed decisions.
Yes, indeed.
So I think there's a bit of a culture in academia, perhaps maybe you can speak to this as well, where everyone in academia enjoys learning. They're sort of, you could say, considered smart. So when you look in this culture of people who are academics squashed together, and it's a competitive culture, it's a competitive place, as you will know, there's sort of, I think, a competitive nature. People want to be, I'm the expert on this, I know about this, I've got this grant, I speak on this, not you. And I think we need to break down that. I think collaboration is key. I think that in every aspect of my life, you want to find, you can't be an expert in everything, right? So you're an expert on what you're an expert on, and you need to surround yourself with other experts who can complement you and support you in different ways. So I think relying on other people, not relearning and redoing their mistakes, speaking to your colleagues, what mistakes have you learned you can cut out for me so I can just go to this part here, what can you teach me? And I think particularly when I was doing my PhD, I was very fortunate that culture was really cultivated by my peers, by my colleagues, by people who are now my friends, that support system. And everyone knows what everyone's going through in those sort of environments. So I think science is for everybody, and we need to get rid of this pompous attitude of, I'm a scientist and I know this and this is hard for you. No, if you can't speak it easily, if you can't break it down, you don't understand your own science very well. I've heard that before. So if you can't communicate your science to anybody, how well do you understand it? So it's more about empowering people to understand science is already for them. Science is already in their life.
Okay. Thank you for breaking down that for us. Do you have a favorite story? Maybe a child or a parent who was moved by or inspired by one of your events?
Oh, so I remember when I was making my brochure for my business, and I was sort of there's a section I was putting in a few keywords of what people could expect from our sessions, and I put in there build confidence. And when I wrote that, I was thinking, science curriculum hasn't changed massively in recent years, and science equipment at schools, the availability of schools hasn't changed massively. So I really wanted to give children hands-on experience and to make the sort of science stick. I've worked with my hands, I know what this is, and that's how I wanted to give them increased confidence. The things parents have told me that are the most impactful are just really how confident their children have become, and not in the way I expected. I mean, all around as individuals on all aspects of their life. And it's really hard to quantify.
Yes, indeed.
An improvement in confidence, but it's so obvious when you are in the sessions and we see, particularly the children, and we see them come and grow and change. And it's something I'm most proud of. I knew I would increase their confidence, but to see it hands-on and to see how it's happening, that's really, really moving. And it really keeps me going. I love it. I really love it.
Okay, what would you say, what has been your biggest challenge as a science entrepreneur?
So I didn't plan this life for myself. I often say I was racing towards my PhD. That was my goal. That was what I wanted to achieve. And I didn't think much past that. So there's been a lot of challenges. I'm very grateful for the journey we've had. We've come a long way. We've done a lot. There's been a lot of challenges along the way. I think, and I mean, this is going to link back to the PhD. I think the biggest challenge was I was entering a sort of a new space, somewhere I hadn't prepared myself I was going to be. I thought I would just finish my PhD and go into a employed job in a lab. I've got a real trust for myself. I was speaking on this morning with a couple of friends. I really trust myself now. I know what I'm able to do. I know what I'm able to achieve. So I can say to myself, trying to think of an example, I just know I can get things done, and I'm really enjoying relying on myself. I'm responsible for myself. I secure my finances now myself. I organize my time myself, and I trust myself. I spent a lot of time training myself, and I feel reliable, and I feel very empowered working for myself. I really, really love it. Considering it wasn't on the cards for me, I couldn't see myself doing anything else now.
Yes, indeed. I lecture, I teach science, I teach robotics. But what would you say your approach is different from what we see in schools or museums?
So we're not trying to be a school. So there are elements where children and sort of participants write things down or catalogue what they're doing, but we're really not trying to be a school. It is fun. It's hands-on learning. You're allowed to make mess. You're allowed to, not intentionally, but break things. You know, things get broken in our sessions. I have that attitude. I'm buying these equipment for them to be used. Everything gets heavily used. It's not things I'm precious over, you know. So letting people make mistakes, letting people get their hands involved and, you know, learn that way and do it that way. So does that answer the question? Yeah, is that, yeah?
It definitely does. So, so what's the 5-year vision for Howard-Brumlich Events?
Oh, I love that question. I've always had sort of like 5-year plans in the past, maybe not this area of my life. So where do I see myself in 5 years? Definitely still doing this. I love it. I really, really love it. This, but to a bigger scale, to more people, bigger events, more microscopes, more learning, more fun, more of everything. That's where I see, just growth for the business and growth for the numbers of people we can reach. We've got to the point now where on a daily basis, I'm in front of as many people as I can manage with my timetable. So how do I extend all the goodness of Howard-Brumlich Events, the learning, the fun, the excitement, beyond just me physically being there? So that's what we're working on at the minute. Yeah, and we've got some nice ideas underway.
Yes, indeed. Do you feel like your journey has been guided by something deeper, faith, purpose, or both?
So I do have faith. I absolutely do have faith, and But I think I do really have focus, and I do feel this is my purpose. I think I found what I love, and it feels very, very natural. So I'm very fortunate when I talk about my academic journey, or even my journey in general. I was supported very well as a child, and I was told you can do anything you want to do. I was told that so much I believed it, and I was always allowed to pursue what I wanted to pursue. I was never pushed as no one else's expectations on me. This was all, you know, I was allowed to do my own thing. I've got a bit of a funny story. I remember when I was a child, I was always in trouble for making potions. I was always damaging carpets or soft furnishings by getting all the bottles from the bathroom and making little concoctions. And I've heard it said that all children are scientists and just some people grow out of it. And I think I never grew out of it. I was always allowed to get messy and do that. And my mum was very indulgent of me and really supportive. So I'm just following my passion. So it feels very natural. And I'm aware that's a real luxury. And I've been, you know, supported in that process. But I would say as much as possible, finding your passion and tailoring your life to fit that in is how you stay on track with one sort of goal. Like that would be my advice.
Yes, indeed. Well, conventionally, people like to say women don't fit the mold for science. Well, what advice would you give to a young woman who wanted to get maybe in STEM?
So my business actually came, an idea for my business, an early idea, was the fact that I was given some funding. I applied and won some funding to look at threats to success to minorities, Black people, people of colour, women in STEM. So I started researching alongside my PhD those threats to success. And you know, I've heard a lot of it. I've been in places where I haven't been treated like the expert in the area that I am. I think women need to remember we are allowed to be here. We don't need anyone's permission to be here. It doesn't matter where we're in any space.
Yes, indeed.
We're allowed to be here. We're allowed to take up this space. Something that I had training on it. It was like I can't remember exactly what it was, but I remember we had an exercise where we looked at an email and it was, "Hi, so sorry to bother you. If you don't mind, would you consider please doing this?" I think we need to stop wasting our time thinking about how can we do this in the softest way? How can we say this to make sure we don't offend anybody? I'm out here doing my business. If I offend you, I'm sorry, but that's not my intention. You're going to find me still doing my business. I have to be myself and can't be putting too much time into worrying. Am I annoying that person? Am I in their way? They want to use that bench first. So they first in the queue. No, I'm here now. I'm here and I'm doing it. So I think it takes practice, but being unapologetically yourself. Your brain will tell you if you are meant to be a scientist, if you're interested in the science, if you want to do it. And you don't need anyone else's permission. Don't wait for it. Don't ask for it. Yeah. Get out there and just do it.
I agree with that. Well, if money was no object, what's the biggest, wildest science event you would host?
Oh, I love that. I didn't think you were going to ask that question. I was expecting if money was no object, what would you be doing? And it would be the same thing here. I would be doing what I'm doing right now if money was no object. because I love it so much. But I would love like a science festival, where just visually, on a big scale, and I would love it to be expert led. I always try and I always consult with other academics, other researchers. Everything we do is based in science. It's based, in research. So I would like to have people there, the other PhD students and other academics at the cutting edge of science, really translating their research. That's what's being done right now into the interface it needs to be ready for the public, I think. So to be public ready. So sort of really bridge that gap. So lots of fun things that are, visual, lots of people and lots of experts there. Yeah, leading the way.
Absolutely. Now, thank you for your time, your passion, and your honesty. Where can our listeners follow you and get involved?
Yeah, well, so thank you for having me. It's been a real absolute pleasure, and I really love everything you've done here. Really, thank you very much. So I'm on Instagram. That's Naomi Howard Science. I'm on TikTok. I believe that's Howard-Brumlich Events. I have to check that one. And I'm on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. It's Naomi Sweetness Howard. That's me. So you'll find me on the socials. Yeah, we're trying to get more active all the time.
Absolutely. Well, this has been another episode of Sustainably Smart Talks. Thank you, Naomi, for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.